Support comes from St. Louis Public Library Foundation, helping the library serve children and their families with programs and services needed to become lifelong readers. More information about the foundation is at slpl.org.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Jeremy Goodwin. If you hadn't heard, we are now 12 days from the November election, when voters will make their pick for the next president. They also have key congressional races, statewide amendments, and several local measures. To make sense of the local piece, we have St. Louis Public Radio reporter Rachel Lippmann. You can find her latest reporting on our website today. She's also a key contributor to our voter guide, which you can find at stlpr.org/voter guide. Rachel, welcome back to the program.
It's always good to talk to you, Jeremy.
So voters in St. Louis are going to sort through ballot questions related to several issues. Let's start with housing. There's a real need for quality, affordable housing in St. Louis. Studies have shown that the rise in properties dedicated to short-term rentals, we mean things like Airbnb, that squeezes out long-term residents who want to buy or rent long-term. Rachel, if passed, what would Prop S do about all this?
Proposition S levels a 3% fee per night per stay on the cost of an Airbnb. So if a room rental at an Airbnb or a place is $100 a night, it comes to $103. The thought process of the sponsor was short-term rentals can push affordable housing out of the market. And if we want to have them be a part of the solution, this is one way to do it, to kind of counterbalance access to affordable housing by taking some of the funds and directing it towards affordable housing.
So when we talk about money going to support affordable housing, what does that mean exactly? Where do those dollars go?
There will be two main places where the revenue raised by Proposition S will go. At least half of the revenue generated will have to go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and that is the main source of funding for the construction, renovation, and operation of affordable housing units, whether that's owned or rented in the city of St. Louis. And then the other half, or the other part of that, would go towards things like eviction prevention. There is a city program that gives lawyers to people who are facing eviction, money for relocation costs, other housing issues.
So these funds would go to they'd be managed by different people? It's not one department, this is sort of the affordable housing.
It is one kind of space in the affordable housing universe in the city of St. Louis, but it is not specifically for the affordable housing department. Okay. That does not exist in the city of St. Louis.
So how much housing in St. Louis is dedicated to short-term rentals?
We don't know exactly right now. There are some regulations that are set to take effect next month, shortly after the election, that would give us a count because it would begin to require the use of permits and other things where, these Airbnbs would be kind of more known to the city of St. Louis. But because we don't know, how many rentals are operating right now and what their stays are costing, it's hard to get an estimate.
Why are short-term rentals more attractive to some landlords?
There can be more revenue potential to it. Affordable housing can have limits on how much you charge for rent. You can't necessarily charge market rent if you want to make affordable housing. And Airbnbs, VRBOs, are what the market will bear. So if somebody wants to stay in a room for $200 a night, they can. Whereas if they're doing an affordable unit, they may not get that much money coming in. They think it's just kind of a better financial deal for them.
Is there any organized opposition to Proposition S?
No organized opposition to Proposition S. The lone vote against it at the Board of Aldermen when it was getting to the ballot came from Alderwoman and mayoral candidate Kara Spencer. She was concerned about tying potential revenue to one source given the city's budget uncertainty.
Okay. Let's move on to Proposition T. And as we sort through the alphabet soup of ballot items, let's remind folks you are allowed to bring notes in with you to the ballot box.
Yes, you can take your phone, you can take notes in with you, but if you do bring your phone in, you can't take a ballot selfie.
Okay. But you can dial up STLPR's voter guide, for instance.
Correct.
Okay. So Proposition T, for voters in St. Louis City, it would convert the Department of Streets to the Department of Transportation. Rachel, other than the name change, what does this mean?
The idea is that it would take and consolidate planning, oversight, thinking about coordination of all modes of transportation, foot, pedestrian, car, train, multimodal, everything into one department. The intent is to just kind of meet all of the needs of transit in one place rather than have it being scattershot. There's really no one thinking overall about transportation policy in the city of St. Louis. It's just really focusing on the paving and maintaining of the roads.
So what's unusual about the way St. Louis handles its streets?
It's done by wards. And if you travel in the city of St. Louis, you know that streets don't stop at ward boundaries. Kings Highway, for example, stretches across most of the city. Same thing with Grand Boulevard. So one ward may have...
When you take Grand, as soon as you pass Del Mar going north...
It's a different ward.
It's a different road.
Or passing, crossing over 44, you get to a different road, or going farther down south. So the idea and the thought is that rather than have this come ward by ward, paving money is just available for the city of St. Louis, and you can then coordinate and plan and do things that right now, because of that structure, are much more difficult to do.
So you don't have a crystal ball, but given the condition of streets in St. Louis, which are in notoriously poor shape in spots compared to other cities, Proposition T passes, am I going to have a smoother ride around town anytime soon?
It's not guaranteed. That is, of course, the hope of the proponents of Proposition T, but there is no provision within Proposition T itself that funds or staffs or actually does the restructuring of this department. All of that would come from current or future boards of aldermen by passing ordinances, dictating the responsibilities, dictating the funding, those kind of things. This just says by 2029, we will transition to this department.
And St. Louis can be a dangerous place for cyclists and for pedestrians. Is there anything in this proposition for them?
Again, the hope is that by giving one department the authority over all planning of transportation, that they'll take all of those modes into consideration. Like when you are designing a road, you keep bicyclists, pedestrians, etc. in mind. Again, it doesn't guarantee that protections will be there. The hope is that by coordinating and centralizing everything, one department can think about transportation issues more broadly.
So right now, there's no master list of the roads that are most in need of attention, and there's someone in City Hall going down them one by one.
That is correct. All the paving, all the planning, all of the restructuring, that's all done by ward levels, and certain other departments all touch streets in some way, shape, or form. It's taking all of those different operations and processes that are currently scattered through all of these different city departments and bringing them into one central department of transportation.
Okay. Let's talk about Proposition V, which backers hope will cut down on things like illegal dumping, vacant properties that are left to decay. How might Proposition V deal with all that?
Proposition V removes the current cap on fines and fees for the preservation and protection of environmental conditions in the city of St. Louis. So like you mentioned, that would be things like illegal dumping, vacant properties. The hope is that by making these ordinance violations more expensive, you create a little bit more of a deterrent effect. Right now, most of these fines and fees are capped at $500. And for a big out-of-town property owner, that's the cost of doing business.
What about someone who's maybe having financial trouble? They're just not able, they don't feel they're able to afford the upkeep their property needs. Could they get hit by these fines?
The key words in this proposition are non-owner occupied buildings. The target of this isn't a homeowner who just can't keep up with the upkeep of an old St. Louis brick building. Here is Alderwoman Daniela Velasquez of the 6th Ward. She was this measure's champion, talking about these ballot issues at a town hall on October 14th.
We really want to go after companies, out of state, out of city owners who aren't seeing what the disinvestment does on that block day to day.
Yeah. Is that idea getting a lot of support?
There is, again, no organized opposition to any of these ballot measures, S, V, T, or other charter amendments on the ballot. The thought is, again, aldermen will pass ordinances with an amount of fines or fees that would serve as a deterrent. They could structure it that if you have your first violation, it's less, and then if you get up to 14, 15, 16 violations, the amount is larger, or if you own more properties that you are allowing to deteriorate, that you face a larger penalty. All of that would be passed again at current or future boards.
And earlier on, Prop V proponents were talking about lifting caps on all city fines and fees. Why did they narrow the focus like this?
The thought was that in the post-Ferguson era, where we learned a lot about how police departments and cities used municipal fines and fees to fund their operations and caused people sometimes to go to prison because they couldn't pay those fines or fees, that they would focus on ordinance violations that really do harm to the city of St. Louis, such as deteriorating vacant buildings.
Okay. Well, for more information on local ballot measures and a full breakdown of county council races, you can check out our online voters guide. Again, stlpr.org/voter guide. We've scratched the surface here. The ballots get very long in this election. If folks are interested.
Yes, I think the city is 20 inches, they said.
Oh, my goodness. So you can check out a sample ballot at the website for the county and for the city. but we have a focused look at that in the voter guide. Rachel, elections can be chaotic. It is always great to sort it out with you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Jeremy.
This episode was produced by Jeremy Goodwin.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.